You're going to learn some cool things today. Bob Masla, what are you going to do? What are you going to teach us today?
Well, I'm going to show you very beautiful technique that will, in a quick way, help you to render both composition and value really quickly, nail it, with two different mediums and two different paintings.
That sounds exciting. Why don't we get right into it? And let's just get good way to start a Monday. Just jump right in.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. It's all yours.
All right, thank you. I wanted to show this painting because this is kind of the origins of where what I'm going to be showing you Imprimatura comes from. Imprimatura literally means the first color. But this painting, which is of my friend John McDonald, started off as a plein air painting and then went into the studio and then finished off in plein air. Eric, could you show those two images, those two slides?
Yeah, okay, just a second. All right, first one, this one.
Okay, so this is the basic origins of oil painting. This is a process called verdaccio, actually came from fresco, through the origins of oil painting in the West. On the top left, you'll see a charcoal and chalk drawing on toned paper. That was then transferred to the panel, which is then inked in. And then on the right, bottom right, is again the values stated with the verdaccio, which was a mixture, we believe, of white, yellow, ochre, and black. And there's a scale along the top where I did a mixture of that, so you can see the values from the black to the white. And then you would glaze colors over it one after another. It was a very lengthy process. And it emphasizes the importance of value to create the illusion of three dimensions. Can you show the next slide, Eric? So this is from a drawing class that I teach, but it basically is the principles of form, turning the form with light and shadow, and shows you all the different aspects of doing that. And that's basically what you need to create a three-dimensional illusion, if that's your intention. Okay.
I want to show them this baseball. That's a really great example.
Yes. And so that was using a very similar technique to the verdaccio and the one of John. There was a very detailed underpainting. This technique that I'm going to show you is much looser, much rapider, because artists wanted to speed things up. And so let's get right down to that. I'm going to pull this one off.
You were a relentless promoter. The back of the back of your shirt has the name of your business on it. I should mention that Bob has a fabulous workshop location in Mexico, which is just unbelievably beautiful, and teaches lots of workshops. You do them online too, right, Bob?
I do, and we have some of the greatest painters around that join us to teach as well.
Yeah, I'll mention your website just so they can check you out. It's Masla Fine Art, and from there you can find out about his link to his workshops and everything else.
Great.
All right, so, let's do this.
This is a canvas. This is a Frederick's watercolor canvas. Has a special gesso on it that allows watercolor to adhere to it. I've already laid in the imprimatura. There it is. Imprimatura literally means the first color. But I want to come back to this one and just start with the oil imprimatura, because that's much more common. That's where the technique was developed. This is a Frederick's linen panel that's been gessoed with oil primer. I'm going to be using the Cobra water mixable oils, and typically, they recommend that you do not use a linen prime canvas for the water mixable oils. There's an adhesion problem. But what I did before I start here, I'd laid a couch. A couch is a coating of oil. In this case, I used the mixture of their painting medium and fast dry medium. So the oil, which is fatter, as opposed to, just using the straight paint or water and paint, which is what a lot of people do with the water mixables, will give it adhesion. And so that's important if you're using an oil primed linen. So I did for this one, do a couple of quick sketches of values. What I'm going to do, I'm mixing together for this both Prussian blue and a transparent red oxide. And
Okay.
that makes a beautiful, beautiful greenish gray, you see. And I'm just going to rest this in. Now, when I do this, say if I'm doing this in plein air, or if I'm looking at a photograph when I'm doing this, I will kind of rough in the idea of where I'm going to be placing objects. So I assume you can see a little bit of these sketches.
Yeah, we can see it now. Looks like you're dry brushing that in. Is that right?
Yeah, but because I laid a couch, it feels like you're doing wet on wet.
Okay, so it's already moist.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons typically artists use a couch is because what they want to do is achieve, for example, if a painting you've been working on gets sunken in, there are dull areas.
I have a couch in my living room. Does that count?
Yeah, they'll lay in the color that way, and then come back and put some oil. It's often referred to as oiling out, and that will create that effect that will feel like you're working wet and wet.
If you just joined us, our guest today is Robert Masla. He's coming to us from Massachusetts right now, but he's also in Mexico part of the year teaching. And today is day number 320. We have prizes for comments, and so make sure to leave a comment. Yesterday's winner of Make More Money Selling Your Art, or Fridays, is Joe Aubrey from Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we're giving away a pair of value specs to help you see your values. So make sure you leave comments and tell us where you're from. All right, Bob, back to you.
Okay. So I'm just roughing this stuff in, looking at the real large masses, basically. And I'm going to give it a little shot of water here because I want this area to be a little dissolved. Grab a towel here and blot it up. You can see that it's creating a texture somewhat like you might get in watercolor.
Nice.
Okay, and then I'm add more paint as we go. And part of the reason, typically when I do this demo, I usually do this on Tuesday nights at the Casa. I will, we have taken a boat trip, and I'll do this totally from memory of something that we'd seen. And listen,
you're kind of blocking the canvas, Bob.
Oh, sorry. Thank you for telling me. Something I often tell artist participants and students is something particularly true with watercolor, but certainly in all painting, is something I refer to as listening to the paint. That's feeling what the painting is telling you to do.
You've obviously been sniffing too many fumes, Bob.
Yeah. There's plenty there. Sorry. Eric, if you could just keep me apprised of the time.
I will.
That way I know how to gauge things.
Yeah, you got plenty right now.
All right.
Bob and I, when we first met, we figured out that I knew his dad in the broadcast industry. His dad was a legend.
Well, thank you. Yeah, he was a pretty amazing guy.
Now Bob's a legend. Make sure you guys tell us where you're from when you're making comments. It's very helpful. What the brand of paint he's using is Cobra by Rembrandt. Cobra is a water soluble or water mixable oil.
That's right. And it's a lovely.
You're blocking.
Paint. Oh, thank you. I got to remember to turn. I was actually trying to do it from the other side when we were experimenting, but it was literally impossible to get the strength in my arm for that kind of emotion.
All right, you're a lefty,
almost,
huh?
yeah. So we're getting close. So, if I'm looking at a subject and doing this, I will kind of play with it. And the idea is that, you want to make a painting, not necessarily, unless it's your intention, of course, to copy exactly what you're seeing. That's not my intention. My intention is first to have fun, and then to be creative. And that's what I meant by listening to the paint, kind of responding to what's happening. This is particularly true when working with watercolor, because with watercolor, you have to kind of dance with it.
You're blocking. Kind of hard to paint sideways, isn't it, from the side?
It's tricky. I mean, it's all, there's all these, what would you call them, learning opportunities that have come from this whole thing we've been dealing with, this pandemic.
Yeah.
One of them, going virtual. I hand it to you, Eric. You've been an inspiration to so many people. And, when we had to cancel the workshops in Mexico, and I was for many months in our newsletter, and still do, I would mention your daily presentations, and I just people really enjoy this, and it's fantastic that you do this. So hats off to you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, so you can start to see some of the form taking shape. And now I'm going to come back. I'm going to grab what is called a paint shaper. And
okay, now we need you to step aside. I need a code. I need a secret code so I don't have to keep saying it. Let's see. It'll be beep. Okay, so show us the shaper so they know what the heck a shaper is.
This is, it's basically a piece of rubber, hard rubber, but somewhat pliable.
And that's made by whom? Is that Princeton?
Catalyst.
Catalyst, which is Princeton, yeah.
Princeton. Yeah.
And is that a Princeton brush you're using?
It is. It's the Aspen. I've actually met the folks at the Plein Air Convention many years ago, and have really fallen in love, particularly in plein air. You notice the black ferrule. I used to put black tape around my brushes, so if you're painting in bright sunlight, the reflections can be quite blinding.
Hold that up so people can see it. I was painting last night with a brush, and it kept shining in my eyes, even indoors.
Yeah. And, in Mexico, the sun is quite bright. And that was always something, that's why I would sometimes do that. So I'm just pushing the paint to create that sort of sense of.
So you're basically using the shaper to wipe out some sunlight on those rocks.
Right. So things that you ask yourself when drawing or painting, both in nature, but you're looking at things naturalistically, is first thing is, where's your eye level, which for me is probably this body of water. I don't know if you could see that drawing there that I did, little sketch. So the water is coming in somewhere there. There's a little path that goes by, and then there's this rickety bridge, and then this is water flowing. So I'm going to come back and pull some of this out. And,
you can get such a great result just by doing reductive painting like that.
Oh yeah, that's this whole technique. So here's an area of focus our eye always goes to that area that is the highest contrast.
Randy Sexton says, Buenos dias, Roberto and Erico.
Hey,
Randy has taught at your school.
yeah, and he's doing a virtual workshop with us as well. Yeah, many of the painters that part of your plein air convention are CASA teachers as well. So I'm seeing water coming down here, and of course I want to lighten some of this up a little bit more. But over here I'm gonna, take a little bit of that blue and make that a little bit more verdant and carve out some of that rock. Now, part of that form principle, if you can see, I have the angle of incidence, the direction of the light, coming in slightly from the front, but pretty much even and overhead to the right. So it's hitting these rocks, and this area is flooded out with light. As it comes into the core of the shadow, you have that area that's known as the terminator. It's where light is totally cut off.
Yeah.
And that's the area where you're going to pick up the most texture.
I'm going to bring up that image again so people can see that. Okay,
Sure.
you see where the light's coming from, and then how you've got the terminator line.
Right, and so that's the area where you're going to pick up most of the texture, because the light is raking, and this is on round objects or oval type objects, obviously, because the light, it's turning away from the light, and the light is raking across the object, and it's picking up those hills and valleys, so to speak. And then you go back into your core shadow area as it turns, and oftentimes there'll be some reflected light, and even if you don't see it, probably a good idea to put it in there because it helps to turn the form a little bit. And that gives a certain roundness to it.
Right.
Now I want to show that there's water there, and the light is coming. So this place that I'm actually, when I was thinking, what am I going to paint? We've been itching to travel. Obviously, I'm not in Mexico. Like so many places, we had to, cut off, the workshops because I was more concerned about the people there and our guests coming. So we've been dreaming about traveling, but in 2019, my wife Monica and we traveled to Morocco.
Nice.
And this was a place that I hiked to outside of Chefchaouen. And that's known as the Blue City, Chefchaouen. And it was quite an arduous hike. As I was going there, it was called God's Eye, I believe, or the Needle or something. It was a natural arch in a national park that was about an hour's drive from Chefchaouen. And
blocking. Yeah.
I was walking, and it was really, nobody spoke English that I met. And so, I would ask for God's Eye, and I forgot how you'd said that, but people kept on pointing to this path going upwards. So I hiked for at least an hour up this incredible incline. And quite treacherous. I had a backpack with my Plein Air Pro easel in it, watercolor easel. It was kind of heavy with my watercolors and panels, etc. And I get up there and I realize this is not where I want to be. I wanted to be at the bottom of it, looking up. So I hiked back down, and by then it was getting late in the day, and I was realizing I didn't have a lot of time. But I found out this path that went along the river and finally led me to it. And I only had less than an hour to actually do the painting. But this was on the way, this view, and it was quite spectacular.
So you stopped and did a sketch?
Yeah, and this is a very rickety bridge. It's just basically slats of wood, and I don't think I would do that hike again if I knew what I was getting into. But it was really fun.
Yeah, I've been there.
Have you?
We were out in the Adirondacks, and I went into this art gallery to see a friend of mine, and he had this painting of this spectacular waterfall. I said, "Where is that?" He told me. So he said it's just a short hike in. So me and the three people that were with me rushed over there, found it, and we drove. We ended up hiking 4.5 miles in, and it was getting dark. So we did a quick 30-minute painting and then had to hike out. It was awful.
Yeah. Frustrating, right? But so even how long we've been at this, Eric?
You're into it 20 minutes and 57 seconds.
All right. So, I mean, you can push this and keep pushing it. You know, adding whatever amount of detail you want. And that's true with all painting. You can keep it really loose and semi-abstract, or you could go to say where that baseball went.
Right.
You know, and that is it's all, either one is fine. It's all a matter of what is your intention. Intention is everything. When you decide what your intention is, that determines the choice of medium. It determines the composition. So many things are all determined by your intention. True in life too, but
Yeah.
all right. So I could put a little bit more texture in that Terminator here.
So that first brush you used is the same brush, right? And that's the Princeton
That's a
Aspen.
Princeton. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
small number 16.
Yeah. And somebody asked about the panel. If you just want to quickly say about the panel again.
All right, so this is a Fredericks linen panel, and this is oil primed. Now, I don't always use an oil primed for this technique, and particularly, you know, sometimes I'll use, if I'm using oil paint. For example, when we were in the Adirondacks together, Eric, we went to, I think it was High Falls, the painting over here.
Yeah.
And I did similar technique using traditional oil paint.
Right.
And I used quite a bit of mineral spirits to create this very dripping effect. And that was a different feel to it.
Somebody asked, would this be considered a tonalist painting?
At this point, it would be. And, sometimes I will leave the painting like this in this stage, but this is traditionally just an underpainting. There are many paintings that you then come back and add color to. If you look at some of the work on my website, or follow some of those links to the gallery that recently had an exhibition of my work called Gratitude, the Unrecognized Essential Worker series. A lot of those paintings started like this and ended up getting color on top of them.
I've got your website showing on the screen so people can see it.
Great.
Did you have that shirt made just for this broadcast?
No. We have those down at the Casa.
I'm going to get down there to see you one of these days.
I hope so, Eric.
My wife's intimidated by going to Mexico, and I keep telling her it's fine. What would you say to people who have those fears?
I would say I actually was talking with somebody about that just yesterday, and it really depends. I think it was Allie, actually. It depends where you are, just like in the United States. It depends where you are. The area where we are is near Puerto Vallarta, which has a population of roughly 300,000, and 50,000 of them are expatriates from the U.S. and Canada. And there's less violence there. There's petty robbery, that kind of thing, but less violence than just about any major city in the United States. The U.S., unfortunately, because of, well, a bunch of craziness, there's a tremendous amount of gun violence, as we know.
Somebody asked me to show this form drawing one more time, so I'm going to just put it on there real quickly. Go ahead and keep painting.
Yeah. So I teach a drawing class that's based on that and many, many different exercises to actually improve painting.
If you guys want this, just grab a screenshot of it. I'm going to take it off in 3, 2, 1. Blam. Well, maybe.
All right.
Okay.
So, I think you're getting the sense of what I've been able to do with this. And, because we're pressed for time, I want to move on to the other one.
All right. And, so if you were going to take this to the next level, then you would wait for it to dry?
I would probably work it a little bit more, just refining the values, a little more subtle transitions in different areas. And then, I would let it at least get tacky, but not necessarily.
It's already tacky.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Couldn't resist.
Yeah.
You set me up.
I did. You're right.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
How about thumbs up and applause for Bob on this underpainting?
Yeah.
So now the next one you're going to do is a watercolor underpainting.
Right. Same idea of using a Verdascio, imprimatura, but before there was this watercolor canvas, it was really impossible to do this with a watercolor because you can't really lift off paint as thoroughly in watercolor as you could when you're not, on paper. You can do it, but you got to really scrub the paper, and some paints will stain the paper, and it just becomes a real challenge. How much time do I have, Eric, just so I can gauge myself?
Oh, you got about 25 minutes.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect. You can knock out 3 or 4 in that time.
Yeah, right. So this is a little sketch I did again from Morocco, and
Yep.
It's I believe this was Essaouira on the coast. I just love these feelings, entering the market or, going through, and it's a cityscape. So I wanted to do something very different.
Did you feel safe there?
Yes and no. I'll tell you, like I was saying about Mexico, I feel safer walking around Puerto Vallarta at night than anywhere in the United States, even little towns. That said, when I was in Marrakesh, walking down the street, somebody tried to pickpocket me.
Yeah.
Luckily, I caught their hand just as it's going in my pocket. 2 young men.
Well, you know what I do is when I go, we've had a lot of people get pickpocketed on our art trips, and no matter where you go, any city, and you're filled with it. And so what I do is I carry a decoy wallet.
Ah, that's smart.
Yeah.
That's really smart. Well, I always keep it in my front pocket. I'm pretty sensitive.
Okay, everybody, now you know where he keeps the money, just in case.
Okay, so back to brushes. I'm using Princeton brushes again. The Neptune and their Aqua Elite, which is the closest thing to a Kolinsky that I've found in a synthetic. So let me start.
Show us your palette real quickly.
This is a palette that I've had since, I think from undergraduate.
1929. Okay.
It's at least probably 30-something years old. And these come out. It's mostly for acrylic, but my usual palette, the Plein Air Pro, is hard to hold in your hand.
I like the Plein Air Pro. It's a nice product.
It is. It's a lovely palette. I like the fact that it has a grayscale incorporated in it.
Yeah.
And that is really great for teaching and painting. basically.
So tell everybody about this orange wash that you have here, because
Okay.
a lot of people
Yes.
weren't there in the beginning.
All right. So what I did is I laid an imprimatur, which literally means the first color, of burnt sienna over the whole panel. I wanted it to feel warm. You know, I don't always lay the same color. You know, sometimes it'll be a silvery gray, or sometimes even wild colors, a blue or yellow or red, depending on my intention. What do I want the painting to say? And something that is important to note, that a lot of people who work with the watercolor canvas for the first time don't realize is you have to kind of massage the surface with water, scrub it to kind of loosen up the sizing, so that the paint will actually stick to it. Otherwise, it's a very your brush will skip over it like dry brush.
Yeah, we just had a record number of people on Watercolor Live was it last week or the week before? I've lost track of time already. I guess it was last week. And so we got a lot of information about all the different tips and techniques on watercolor. It was fabulous. As a matter of fact, we sold over 1,000 seats to the next 2 conferences.
Fantastic.
Okay, tell us what you're doing now. What are you thinking?
So I'm thinking of isolating the dark. I'm creating this archway. So, you know, I envision the city back here, a few figures walking through this arched area. The light is coming. I didn't mark it here, but it's coming strong. It's probably 2 o'clock or so, maybe late afternoon, but it's probably later. It's coming at an angle.
Yeah.
So
what I do is I always put a little arrow in the corner to remind me where my sun is coming from.
Yeah, that's
somebody asked the panel. The panel is a Frederick's watercolor panel.
Yes, it's a watercolor canvas panel. They also make them just stretched. You know, it's nice thing about it also is I've done some very large canvases in watercolor. Now, I've stopped framing my watercolors in glass years ago, and I'll spray them with a fixative. I'm just going to pull out. You can see now how easily it is to remove. This paint is dry, right? And this paint could be 2 years old. In fact, I was showing a demo for Royal Talons in which I actually had a painting that was 3 or 4 years old that I did at the Plein Air Convention as a demo. And I just wiped it away. Because if you don't seal it, that's what'll happen.
Somebody asked where you learned to paint. Gabriel Stockton is asking where you learned to paint.
Oh, well, that's a good question. I'm continuing to learn, but I started painting seriously when I was about 11 years old with my mentor. His name was Alton S. Toby. He was a 20th century realist master. I don't know if you remember the golden books of history.
Yeah.
He illustrated all of those.
Wow, nice. What fixative do you use? Somebody's asking.
Okay, so that varies from piece to piece. But for example, now in the winter, which I'm not really used to, but here I am, indoors, I'm not going to spray it with, say, an acrylic fixative or something that's toxic. So I'll often use what's called Spectrafix. Spectrafix is a casein paint.
What does casein mean? Tell everybody what that means.
All right, so casein is a medium that's been around for a long time, and it's derived from milk, and it has a similar property in the way that it works to the Cobra water mixables, in that it's an emulsifier, and it hardens with the contact with the water. And
now, somebody asked, are you still working with Cobra? No, he's working with watercolor now.
No, these are Rembrandt watercolors.
Oh, they're Rembrandt watercolors, yeah.
Let's see, I'm going to pull some of this off because I want to feel that light. As it's coming into this area. Let me move this over. I don't want to block anything. actually just come down some more.
If you guys are enjoying this, please give him a like or a thumbs up or something. And if you're not, give him a thumbs down. But how could you not?
So again, I'm catching this light coming in. So, understanding that whole principle, that's why I always, if your intention is to draw something representational or paint something representational, then you need to, to follow certain principles to create that illusion. Now, when I teach a workshop, one of the first things I always say is there are no rules. Creativity and making art has no rules. That said, there are a number of principles, formulas, etc., that if you follow, they'll yield somewhat predictable results. And it's a good idea to learn those so that you know when you want to break them if you do. That also, in terms of formulas, then of course there's science to be added to that, which you can't ignore, which is like with the water soluble oils or any oil painting, you want to follow fat over lean principle, things like that, so that your painting stays around for a while. Good idea to always use good quality materials.
I just want to mention to everybody that today we're giving away a pair of value specs. Value specs help you see your values. They're really helpful. I used to hold a piece of red plastic up, but this is so much better. Anyway, you can win it by making comments and putting your comment in the section. Tell us where you're watching from too. That's very helpful. Okay, Bob.
All right. So how are we doing with time?
We got about, let's see, about 15 minutes probably.
Oh, great.
So did you do a lot of plein air when you were in Morocco?
Yeah, I did. Mostly, well, it was all watercolor. Yeah. Because it's so much easier to travel with.
That's why I decided to learn it.
Yeah. And there's so many great watercolor teachers, like many of the ones that you have all those folks that you've had with Watercolor Live are just incredible painters.
Yeah, we're going to do it again in a year. Next January. You can already get seats on it, get the lowest possible price at watercolorlive.com.
So I'm switching to a round at this point because I'm thinking I want to get
So you're using a tube paint.
Yes.
Looks like, not a flat cake.
Yeah, I prefer the tubes because I'll often lay the paint on very thick. I'm judging here size here, relative size. I think I want this figure a little bigger. And that's, again, listening to the paint. I like the gesture I had of this figure kind of walking. And the light, again.
So what's the key to making figures look right? Because yours actually looks like a human being.
Yeah, I see a lot of people, especially watercolor painters, but a lot of them, they'll just, well, you don't need a lot of information, that's for sure. But you do need to capture certain gesture or movement and, look at the direction of the shoulders, the hips, and the head. So let me just give you an example. If you're, say, painting a figure and you want them coming to you, if you show some of that neckline, so to speak, that will have them feel like they're coming towards you a little bit. This is just one little thing you could do. But if you want them with their back to you, cut off some of that neck.
Huh. Wow, it really does work.
Yeah.
And how simple just that one stroke down below makes it feel like a foot that's back.
Yeah. And so, let me just throw in a few more. There, you know, when I
You're
do
kind of
drawing
blocking.
classes,
Yeah.
okay, when I do a drawing class, we cover a little bit about simple ways to draw figures, and you know, you can study anatomy and stuff. I did that way back in undergraduate school, and it's useful, without a doubt, very useful. But all of painting, especially, you know, this kind of thing, you want to simplify things.
So what's the key to perspective when you're putting heads in? Are you trying to put heads in typically at about the horizon line?
That depends where the horizon line is. As I was mentioning about the angle of incidence before, the direction of the light, I think the first thing you have to ask yourself whenever you're drawing or painting is, where is my eye level?
Yeah.
And establishing that. You know, I did put it somewhere around here. I'm looking up, and once you have that established, you know if you're looking up at something or down at something. You know, so so light, angle of the light, direction, and eye level are key. Let's see. Let's put in so that we can have a distinction, say, between.
That was a good tip on figures. That's what Ann said.
Oh, you're welcome. And then, you know, here we'll just put a few figures on this little bridge here, just using the edge of the brush. You don't need, like I said, a lot of information, because, you know, the eye, the human mind will fill it in. You know, in different cultures, actually, I think I'm going to put, I had put an umbrella in here from before. I'm going to add that in so that there's something, that beautiful dark there. I'm going to have that emphasized by having something light behind it.
So Carol Olson, Black Bell, says, where's the best place to learn figures like this? I'm afraid I'll screw up a painting. Well, you can never screw up a painting. Just keep trying. Carol, first off, Bob Masla has, just go to his website. He has Zoom classes and things that he teaches, maslafineart.com. Also look at our website, Lilidol or Streamline. We have hundreds, 600, 700 videos, including we have some on painting figures, figures with palette knife, etc. So there are lots of resources like that. Or you can go to a local art teacher, of course.
And also, just practice. You know, I told my kids, who are all in the arts of different sorts, and it's so true. I always used to tell them, if you want to master any craft, there are 3 P's that you have to be willing to commit to. And then if you want to bring it to art, then you add 2 more P's to that. The 3 P's are patience, practice, and persistence. And give yourself, then what makes, you know, that you can master any craft if you have patience, practice, and persistence. Then what elevates it to a art is then taking that and adding to that permission. That was actually taught to me by my middle daughter. You have to give yourself permission to you know, I don't like to use the words mistakes, because there are no mistakes as far as I'm concerned. There are only opportunities for change and growth. But there are things that you can evaluate against your intention that are like meters. And therefore, oftentimes, I know John and I have talked about this, John McDonald, those so-called mistakes are your greatest teachers, because they show you where you need to do your work. And that's also the difference between critique and criticism. If somebody you know, is talking to you about your painting and you feel like less than less than in yourself, esteem or anything as an artist or anything, that's to me a cue to run the other way. Criticism is not critique, and it's never helpful. But critique is an evaluation that's objective about what is, like somebody comes to me and asks me to evaluate, give them a critique. I have to ask them before I ever critique their work is, what is your intention? Because if I don't know your intention, I'm just giving you my subjective opinion.
You're giving them your intention.
Right. What is how I like to paint? What do I like to, what I'm saying? It's totally subjective. But if I know, for example, they want to make this photo realistic, well, that takes a certain set of techniques and other things to do that. But if they are saying wanting to make this thing look even more abstract or expressionistic, that's a whole different set as well. If they're, wanted to be a non-objective painter, that's a whole different set of things too. So actually, this would not be in shadow. You see how I did that? I was just following perspective and I wasn't paying attention. The shadow.
You got about 9 minutes, 10 minutes maybe.
Oh, okay, good.
You're blocking.
Thank you.
But by the way, we have to do this all the time. Our producers constantly have to tell people when we're shooting videos.
Okay.
Not unusual. Don't beat yourself up over it.
Okay. I think this should come down a little bit
Our guest today is Robert Masla. Robert has Casa de los Artistas in Mexico, and he also is in right now he's in Massachusetts, and he teaches online. You can find his work, his teaching, everything at maslafineart.com. And he's a good teacher. He also has workshops with some of the best, and he's a good guy, and he's a fixture at the plein air convention. He's always there. We like that.
Thank you. So this whole area is going to be in shadow.
Make sure you leave a comment. Tell us where you're from. That's how we're going to be picking winners today. Where in Massachusetts, Bob?
I'm in a little town called Ashfield, which is near Northampton, Amherst area.
All right. Hello, India. Hello, Norway. The minute I start mentioning where people are coming in from, all of a sudden everybody starts going into the comments and saying where they're from, which is your job. You're supposed to do that. That's how you pay for this broadcast, is to tell us where you're from. Otherwise, no charge. Netherlands, welcome.
I'm not happy with that there. Let's see.
Would you put watercolor over the browns?
Yeah, you could. If you look at some of the work that's in the exhibition that I mentioned earlier, I did a number of watercolor portraits, and I used some gouache in that. But for the most part, you could lay color over this. You want it to be thoroughly dry. And here's another clue. So I'm using here a more of a bristle brush. So with a bristle brush, I can remove color.
Yeah, and you're not using a traditional watercolor brush right now.
No, this is an oil painting brush.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I'll even use a stiffer bristle than this. And that's for removing color. For adding color, though, you want to use a sable or a really soft one. That's why I was using, the Princeton Aqua Elite, which is like a Kolinsky. I'll also use a Kolinsky as well. But you have to have a really soft touch, because otherwise you'll lift the paint right off the canvas.
Okay.
So when I was doing these portraits and I was putting many layers, I would give it a maybe 2 coats of Spectrafix, which would seal it enough so I wouldn't be lifting off the underlayer
Yeah.
and able to glaze colors on top of that.
This comment, hello from St. Petersburg, Florida. I want to go to St. Petersburg, Russia. Good show. Well, Yvonne, I've got 4 seats left. Go to paintrussia.com. Do you teach perspective courses, Bob?
That is in part of what I teach when I do drawing,
Okay.
both atmospheric and linear. And
You're blocking?
sorry. And again, I don't, these things are important, but they also, again, what is your intention?
Yeah.
So oftentimes we become obsessed with the mechanics of it. And a lot of people, when they're beginning painting, it can be, perspective, linear perspective is mathematical. Look at computer animation. I mean, it's amazing. But, that kind of thing to me lacks the artist's signature. It's kind of like, my feeling about photorealism. I mean, I really admire the technique and the craft of it, but it doesn't ring my bell, so to speak, because after I've admired the craft, it doesn't do a whole lot for me emotionally.
I got a great story about a photorealist. I'll tell you someday. I won't tell you right now.
Okay.
But,
yeah. So again, it's what is your intention, and that will determine, how much of that perspective you want to use, and how you use it. And, I would just watch this incredible film on MC Escher last night. And
right.
if you know MC Escher,
yes.
His work is amazing. And, in it, Graham Nash from Crosby, Stills and Nash had called him up and just said, what an amazing artist you are. And Escher said, no, I'm not an artist. I'm a mathematician.
Ah.
So if you know his work, you know what he's talking about. But
yeah.
He was an incredible artist. He was visionary.
Okay, Bob, I'm going to ask you to come back on camera again because it's
Sure.
that time. I want to encourage everybody to go to maslafineart.com. Bob, you'll have to step in. Well, first off, show us the painting. Give us a nice close-up of the painting. And
sure
if you can.
And if you could, I'd like to show you actually a completed one from Esseria.
Make it fast.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. You got to crack the whip with these people. I'm telling you. Oh, very nice.
So that's a watercolor on canvas done on location.
Nice. Okay.
Same technique. I covered the whole painting with the sepia.
Yeah.
And then removed color and added. Okay. You can see a few dashes of color added into it.
Yep. Nice. Again, you can find Robert at maslafineart.com. Okay. So, Bob, you were awesome. Thank you so much for doing this today.
Well, thank you, Eric, and thank you for doing this every day.
Yeah, I love doing
quite
it.
a service.
I want to encourage everybody to visit Bob Masla's website, maslafineart.com. Check out all his teaching. His workshops in Mexico are legendary, and I'm sure they'll be back when we're all allowed to take the handcuffs off. So
we're actually publishing our schedule for 2022 at the end of this month.
Oh, good. All right. Well, make sure you get them on maslafineart.com. Bob, thank you so much. Hang around, everybody, for a couple of seconds, and we're going to finalize this. Bob, we'll see you. And happy painting. Let's go painting together. I'll be up that way this spring. So
I'd love to see you.
See you then, unless you're in Mexico. All right. Bye-bye. Okay. Well, this has been nice having Bob Masla on, and make sure you check out his website. I'm Eric Rhoads, publisher of Fine Art Connoisseur and Plein Air magazine. We're here every day. This is day number 320 since quarantine began. The goal is just to keep you upbeat, excited, thinking about art, taking it up, learning about it, trying different techniques. We have, because of coronavirus, we had to pivot. We normally do things like live events, plein air conventions, workshops, you name it, retreats. but we had to pivot. And so we've now done things like Watercolor Live, which we had last week. Watercolor Live was the largest art conference in the history of the world. It was pretty cool. And it was all online. Now we're working on Plein Air Live, a second annual one. We did it back in the summer in 20. Now we're going to put it right in spring. And the reason we're doing that is because, first off, we think the plein air convention is going to take place, but we don't know. And we know people like to get tuned up and ready. The reason we put the plein air convention in the spring is we want people to be able to get tuned up and ready and get lots of ideas and lots of instruction from the great masters, and then be able to go out and paint like a rock star all summer. And so we're putting plein air live in April, and we have all the just top instructors teaching at pleinairlive.com. You can figure it out, and you can come to that. And of course, you can come to the plein air convention. You can do both. We'd love to have you. We have found a lot of people can't do both. A lot of people can't travel. And so anyway, the plein air convention is coming up. And of course, Plein Air Live. I don't have a slide for that yet, but that's coming up. Also, should mention that if you're watching this for the first time, all of the 320 days are on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search Streamline Art Video, and hit subscribe. And you can get access to all 320 days, including our 3 p.m. videos. Today at 3 p.m., our guest is John Potoshnik. Try to say that name right now. Potoshnik. You got it. Limited palette landscapes. He's going to teach you how he paints this with a limited palettes from this video, which you'll have an opportunity to get a discount on. Every day at 3 p.m., we started this during coronavirus. We take segments from the videos we've produced, and we're having the artist on answering questions, and we're giving discounts. And so it's an opportunity for you to get some, build up your library. I want to encourage you guys also that I need a follow. I am on this mission to get to 10,000 this week. And I'm about 9,200, but the rest of you who haven't signed up yet, go to Instagram and follow me, Eric Rhoads. And there's some interesting things about to happen there. That's what I can't tell you what, but I will tell you that's one of the reasons I got to get to 10,000. And we're going to do a big experiment. So get to Eric Rhoads and follow me on Instagram. If you want a free video, we have one as our gift to you. It's called 97 Amazing Painting Secrets. 97tips.com is where you get that. And also, as I mentioned to somebody in the comments, I suspect we're going to be able to go. I've done some homework. Russia's definitely going to be opening up, it sounds like. And it's looking good. It's going to be an amazing trip. We're going to paint in St. Petersburg. We're going to paint in Moscow, and we're going to paint in the small villages surrounding it. We're going to the artist studios of Repin and some others. We are going to a private, yes, private entry into the Hermitage Museum. We're going to see it privately, and we got a lot of other stuff going on too. So watch for that. And last but not least, have a great day. I'm Eric again. Take care, and thanks for watching today. Bye-bye.